Hello. Hi, everybody. Hold on. It looks like the screen needs cleaned. Ah, that's better. Claire, hi. It's been a long time. Nice to see you. Britt, Wendy Lotus, Rochelle. Good to see you as always. Yes, so I'm experimenting with this background instead of it being just plain. So welcome to feedback if it's too busy or it's nice. Yeah, weigh in on that if you choose. It's actually a batik sarong that's hanging on the wall from the home of batik, which is in a place called Yogyakarta, Indonesia, on the island of Java. And actually this is a very specific pattern of batik that is Jogja's, their signature pattern. So yeah, that's that. It's actually not black, Claire. It's like a dark sienna brown. Yeah, which I can see why it would look black. And there is black on it. If you could see the details, you could see the details. But all good. Yeah, interesting, because I can only see it the way I know it, which is like a sienna brown. So it's hard for me to see it as black, which isn't this interesting. We can even turn this into a spiritual teaching. Because there's an object in that we all have a perception about. And, you know, like even thinking about the illusion of, like when everyone agrees on a perception, right? It becomes the reality, something like that. So, hello Mark, Faye. And yeah, and it's like, who's wrong and who's right, because there is black in it. There's actually like black lines within this that make it look, oh look, if you can see the lines a bit there. So perceptions create our reality. Yeah, I feel like just, I don't know, drawing a card. So if you're new here, welcome. However and wherever you're joining me from in the world and whichever platform. So happy to be with you all today. A bit later than usual for those in the Western Hemisphere. And welcome to those who may not usually be able to attend, because of my normal time I go live is in the night in UK and Europe. So maybe there's some early risers here from that area. So glad to have you. However you're joining, wherever you're joining from, you're welcome here. However you're showing up. If you don't know me, please give me a follow here and here on Insight Timer. Feel free to give a donation through the app. Some cards fell. Let me get it. Oh, and guess who's gonna be knocking on the door? Our wonderful cleaning people, but I'm just going to tell them they just have to come back. So, but I can hear them cleaning next door. So yes, and I can I can be unattached. I mean, this room, it's not, they can't be cleaning while I'm doing this. There's not enough space. So, the part of the mind is attached to, I want my room cleaned. So I might get to let go of that expectation, because by the time I finish this, maybe they won't be available. And then, first world problem, I won't get my room cleaned until Tuesday. Bless my heart. Hi, Shaw. Celery man. What do you mean by that? About the celery juice? Yes, glad you're here, Claire. So, I mean, what I'm just talking about is a perfect segue into the topic for today, which is one of my favorite, people and topics, which is the world of Michael Singer and his teachings. So yes, a brief introduction if you don't know me. And if you are new, please say hello if you care to. I'm a spiritual life coach, Reiki master teacher, intuitive. I do cards. Ooh, interesting. I just keep shuffling and cards just keep falling. So, anyway, isn't that interesting? So I will, feel into that. The card that I just pulled, or I didn't pull it, it fell. Breakthrough. There's potential in these teachings for you to have a breakthrough in your life that you that there's a possibility here for you to have a miracle. A miracle is a shift in perception. So is there somebody here that's ready for a breakthrough? I mean, the image on this card is so powerful. There's like these pieces of shards of something that this person is breaking free from. So what are you breaking free from? What do you want to break free from? What are you claiming today for yourself? Where have you been in breakdown? Because every breakdown has a potential for breakthrough, and you have a choice in what you choose. The energy of breakdown holds the potential for breakthrough within it. And on the other side, of this energy is really powerful energy. And there's this is clearing out all this old stuff. All these shards or bricks or whatever are being shifted and just moved out of the way to make way for something new and amazing, which is the breakthrough. So that's a brief message for you there. Hello, Nikki. Oops, here they might be coming. I'm having a breakthrough around the cleaning people. I might have to get up in a second and tell them to return later. But even this is a great analogy. Like, okay, there's something not wanted coming in right now. I could choose to argue with it. I could choose to not like it. I could choose to be frustrated. I could choose to be in victim mode and tell stories, because I asked them earlier what time they were coming, and they said, oh, in a moment, which in Indonesian, which I'm in Bali, by the way, if you don't know, like, yeah, they say sebentar. Sebentar can mean like one literal minute, or it can mean obviously many hours, because it's been many hours. So I could stay in arguing with reality and getting into resentment and projecting stories. The mind has a preference. It prefers that this has already been taken care of and done. So you can see all the potential for suffering in this small example. So that's kind of for me at least, the conditioned responses and reactions. And then to have a breakthrough, a shift in the perception is, ooh, I get to overcome something here. I get to hold space for all of these energies to come up. And I even get to be excited that the cleaning people are coming at this time because of what's being illuminated as a result. So who knows? Thank you, Wendy. I don't know that exact quote from him, but I love it. Thank you. Who all knows also Byron Katie? The work. I'm sure many of you do. So in her worksheet, it's called a Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. There's a part of that worksheet where when you turn around the old beliefs, there's a judgment. The Judge Your Neighbor worksheet, you start with a judgment. So my judgment here with this would be like, the cleaning people should have come earlier when they said they would. So I could do a Judge Your Neighbor worksheet on that, and there's questions you go through. The cleaning people should have come earlier. There's a turnaround place in the worksheet where you flip it to say, I'm willing to have the cleaning people not come on time, and I look forward to them not coming on time. I'm willing to, and I look forward to. So having that shift of energy of, ooh, I look forward to them coming at an inconvenient time so that I can have another experience where I'm letting go. So yes, should is a tricky word, and with the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet, it's always the judgmental sentence always contains should, because the judgment always is blank, should or should not have blank. There, if you think about resentments or judgments or issues about other people, you can really water most all of it down to that. Blank should or shouldn't have blank. So that's why I love that you said that, because that brings that exactly in. And in my coaching, and if you are a client or have experience coaching with me, if you do talk about yourself and, oh, I should have done this or that, in that context, I will definitely bring that statement, illuminate that, because should is not, the energy of should is not very high vibrational. So you can always flip should to could. So if you're shoulding all over yourself, oh, I should have gotten up earlier, oh, I shouldn't have done this, I should have done that. I could have is a whole different energy. So, hi, Carrie. Which of Michael Singer's books is your favorite? Yeah, so thanks, Claire, for bringing that in, and stop shooting all over yourself. Not you, but if anybody is. Start just looking for that word in your vocabulary. So, who all does not know Michael Singer? Or as he is affectionately known by, Mickey. That's what he goes by. Has anybody not heard of him? Or anybody maybe have a vague knowing? I'll be curious to hear about that. And if you are already a fan, maybe you could share your favorite book of his or your favorite quote of his, like Wendy Lotus. Ooh. When did you read Untethered Soul, Carrie? I was thinking as I was as I was contemplating, getting ready for this talk, and I had a memory flash in my head. I was living in Southern California in 2016, and I was lucky enough to live near Agape Church, which I know at least one person here knows about that place. If anyone knows Michael Bernard Beckwith, he was in The Secret or What the Bleep Do We Know, his church. So I was fortunate enough to be living near that church and going there every week. It was amazing. And because I was trying to think, when did I first hear of Untethered Soul? And every week they would read an excerpt from Untethered Soul at the beginning of the church service. I think I'd heard of the book before, but I hadn't read it. And I remember whatever they were reading, my soul was like, yes, more. And yeah, Claire mentioned his no BS style. I call him spiritual tough love. And he always says, he's like, you don't want me to be your therapist, because if I'm your therapist, all I'm going to care about when you tell me your problem is, how do you know you're upset? How do you know you're hurt? How do you know your heart hurts? And he also, he's like, I'm not acknowledging there isn't trauma and abuse and pain and, stuff in the world. He's like, you can have that. But then he's like, okay, what are you going to do about it? So Carrie, Living Untethered as well. Hi, Christoffel. Untethered Soul. And Faye's favorite book, The Surrender Experiment. Yeah, I love that one as well. So sounds like many people are already familiar with Michael Singer in here. So, he has, some different angles of how he approaches the spiritual journey and topics. And I'm just feeling into what wants to come through first. Living Untethered, maybe it was a snack. Maybe it was a spiritual soul snack. Maybe it was a snack and not a smack. A snack is much more loving. I'm glad that was a typo. Yes, totally. Hi, Eileen. Ooh, which book have you downloaded? So Michael Singer is an American. He's in it. He's 70 or 60s, 70s now. He had a first awakening when he was 20 years old, and this is in his book, Untethered Soul. I think he opens the book with it. He's sitting on a couch with a friend, just hanging out, and there was a moment of silence. How many of you have ever been in a social situation where the conversation pauses and you feel awkward? And then it feels your mind is grasping for topics to talk about. So he was, in a space of silence, and then he noticed there was a voice inside, and I can't remember specifically, maybe somebody else does, what the voice said, but it was something about, he noticed that the voice was trying to come up with topics or noticing, there was a voice. And then he even said so the next thing he said to the friend was, have you ever noticed that there's this voice inside talking that doesn't shut up, or something like that? So that was his first experience of being aware that there was a voice in there. How many of you don't know that there's an inner dialogue going on? I don't want to make an assumption that everybody knows that. But, if you're here an Insight Timer and you know Michael Singer, then likely you do already can see and be witness to the thoughts. Okay, the voice was berating him. Thank you, Claire, because, apologies. I obviously don't recall in clear detail what the voice was doing in that moment in the story, but, my recollection of what happened there for him was that he had a first noticing that there was a voice inside that never shuts up, and that he was not that voice. And does anybody remember when that happened for you? I mean, if you're aware there is thoughts and a voice inside, then it's happened. But that really is the first step in awakening, because he does talk in other talks, and I don't know if it's in his books, but I remember a story where he was talking to some, PhD or some very smart person. And I think he said, hey, did you ever notice there's a voice inside that's always commenting on everything? And the guy was like, nope, have no idea what you're talking about. So to first establish that fact, starting from very, very basic, just the basics, that there is a constant dialogue. And that, the journey to self-realization is having a separation of total identification from that dialogue. He talks about that inner voice it's constantly commenting on everything. And it's neurotic. He calls it neurotic. And he even gives examples of the voice will be like, what should I eat today? What should I wear? Or, oh, does this look good on me? Or, maybe I like this over here or that over there in the house. I'm going to move this vase around. And, oh, I wish it had more blue color on it. And, oh, remember that vase that, my grandmother had when I was 5 years old, and, oh, that memory, and then I broke it, just on and on and on, right? So that's the voice, if you aren't familiar. And constant and repetitive, yeah. And sometimes it pauses in nature. Hi, Kat. Wow, that's amazing that you have a very distinct recollection at 11 years old. See, I don't remember. I must have had a moment, of course, because I'm here. I think sometimes, some people have a breakthrough moment like Michael Singer had at 20. That was definitely an aha. In AA we say sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. For me, the journey of awakening. I'm sure I've had my breakthrough moments in other ways, but recognizing the inner voice, I don't have a moment. But that's the first step, because, and do you understand why? If we're just totally identified with everything our mind thinks, then it's the master. And the mind is meant to be our slave, not our master. It's a wonderful slave, it's a terrible master, because it's neurotic, as Singer says. And what happens over time is we get the mind, so we have preferences, we have problems, things we worry about, things we want, things we grasp, things we cling to, things we resist, things we don't want, things we're afraid of, right? So that is in one of two categories: attachment and like clinging or resistance. And so when our mind does that, which is very natural and common, then what happens is, it's, as Singer says, we've given our mind a problem to solve. The problem is, I need more of this, or I don't like this and I don't want this. So the mind is just trying to help us solve an impossible problem. So he says, like, the mind is just trying to, it's like trying to do what you've asked it to do, but there is no solution, so it never stops. And if it does get the thing it wants, it's just going to be immediately replaced by something else. And so he says, to not demonize or make bad or wrong the mind and thinking, even to have compassion for it. Because it's just we're just giving it a job to do. It's just trying to do what we've told it to do. Here's your job, solve my problems. Ooh, Carrie, that's amazing. Landmark in 2009. Booyah, you had a breakthrough. I also did a life transformational training in the realm of Landmark. It was modeled after Life Spring, which is, in the whole genre, which was a very powerful experience I had, and did that in 2016. Or 2015 maybe. Anyway, so, hi Serenity. Any other people that have done any Landmark life transformational experiences? They're very powerful. I mean, honestly, it's how I'm sitting here with you right now. If I trace the chain of events from me going through my own experience, it's led me here. So we have a voice in the head to first know that it's there, and then just looking at how it operates. And in meditation, this is what we practice. Meditation is a practice. What is it always about? We get caught up in the illusion of thinking. And it's just, okay, focus on your breath, focus on your breathing. Oh my gosh, I was thinking about when I was 5 years old and I was outside after school. Ah. Oh, oh yeah, I'm here now meditating. Like when we become fully identified with thoughts, it's like being captured by an illusion. We're in a dream state. If we are identified with our thinking, we're in a dream state. We're not in reality. Because if we're in reality, then we are where our body is and nowhere else. If we are because this is the only reality, is right here and now in this present moment. So anything that is not that is an illusion. Anything outside of this present moment and what you can see around you is, in essence, not your reality in the moment. So that anything outside of that is a thought. You can think about the past, you can think about the future, you can even think about a place in the world, the jungle in Africa or whatever. You can think about the Milky Way, but those are just thoughts. So the only reality is here now in this present moment. So really the journey is to be able to be here now without getting caught up in the dream of thought, which takes us out of the here and now. And Eckhart Tolle, he says he gets the question all the time, well, how do you plan? How do you function in the world? And he's like, yeah, you still can do that, but you're coming from a being state, a state of presence as you do those things or consider those things. But anyway, back to Michael Singer. So that's a great point, Christoffel. You have to start with the awareness first. If you don't know there's a voice in the head, then there's no point in having the rest of the conversation. So the awareness is the first step. And then once you become aware of it, then you can start getting into the realms of seeing how it creates suffering and then the letting go of it. So Singer says that, we've become, or the mind is neurotic. It's neurotic. It has lots of preferences, and the older you get, the more preferences there are, because you've had more life experience and you've had more experience of what you like and don't like. So these preferences get refined. There's a wonderful bug. They get refined so much that, it becomes nearly impossible. The world cannot arrange itself to fit into this tiny box of this. My present moment is going to be perfect if everything fits in this mold. If I'm driving in traffic, nobody can pull out in front of me. It needs to move at a certain pace. The temperature in the car needs to be perfect. The music, I listen to, and if the commercial comes on the radio or somebody honks or somebody hits me from behind, we have all these conditions. So that's a great example, Shaw, that you bring in. There is a story. Your mind has made up a story. The story your mind is making up is causing suffering. Right? So, and this is a great example. Your work manager's mom passed away. That has nothing to do with you in reality, but yet the mind does what it always does. It took that experience, it made it personal, and then it told stories that made you feel guilty that you're not speaking to your mother. So even that is a perfect example of the mind creating suffering. One thing that Singer talks about, he talks about this a lot. This moment is not personal. So he says there's an infinite number of moments happening everywhere all the time. There's moments happening here in Bali, on the other side of the world, on the moon, on Saturn, in different galaxies, in different universes, whatever, right? There's all these present moments happening. But why, when the moment in front of you is unfolding in front of you, your mind makes it personal? So whatever's happening in the moment, it suddenly feels like it has to own whatever this moment is. And, again, the example of traffic, that one was a big awakening moment for me in learning Michael Singer's work when he talked about traffic. I had another awakening in that I didn't notice that I was making traffic so damn personal. A truck would pull out like meters in front of me. The truck did not probably see me, but yet my mind was like, that truck pulled out in front of me and did that to me. I noticed that I saw everything that was happening in traffic as if like it was being done personal to me. And if I was not there, that moment of traffic happening, if I'm not in it, it's still happening and it's not personal. But then the moment I come into it, the mind just personalizes it. So that creates suffering. Weather. He loves to talk about weather. It's raining on my birthday is one of his favorites. And he points out the ridiculous of that thought. But how many people have had expectations or disappointments about weather being a certain... How many of you have taken weather personally? Seriously. Because that's what happens. I'm sure I have. I can't remember specifically, but I'm sure I have. If it rained on my birthday, felt sorry for myself. Which is ridiculous, but yet there it is, and I'm not the only one. Hi, Heidi. Hi, Jules, all the time. Yeah, or he talks about camping. Oh, you plan a camping trip and then it rains, and then, it's like, there's this sense that like God did this, or people pray, oh, don't let it rain on my birthday. Great. It is ridiculous. And so then he's like, look, the reality is the weather is a result of meteorological forces that are so complex that have led to whatever the weather was in that moment. It has nothing to do with you, and that it's your freaking birthday. But the suffering, so to see where the suffering comes from is the mind personalizes things and then creates suffering. It's not personal. Even so, yesterday here in Bali, it was Indonesian Independence Day. Right now it's dry season. And guess what? And my mind did it. And I think I noticed it. But I had a preference about the weather yesterday, but it was Indonesian Independence Day, which just like July 4th in the US, of course, nobody wants it to rain. But I woke up and it was raining, which was weird because it's dry season. It hasn't rained for a month or more. But here it is, August 17th, Indonesian Independence Day, rain. And I noticed that. So these things that he brings in about traffic and weather are the places that you start to work with. I mean, you work with what's here, whatever's coming up. And also you practice, you make a commitment to practice with low-hanging fruit. Low-hanging fruit is fruit that's just, you don't have to effort to reach for. It's easy to pick. It's he gives the examples of like learning to play tennis, learning to play golf, learning to play the piano. You don't have your first day of piano lessons and the teacher gives you Beethoven to play. You start to play scales. You start tennis lessons. You don't start with a tennis pro, lobbing super fast, crazy ass serves at you your very first time playing tennis. You start with very easy balls. So the traffic and weather are the things you start with. So what do you do? How do you do it? How do you work with these things in your life so you can start freeing yourself from the suffering? First, having the awareness that, are you arguing with the traffic? Are you arguing about the weather in your mind? Are you having a preference? Are you having a desire? Are you having a resistance? Even the weather stuff, like that was something that's so, it's like a human cultural, like just in our DNA, that humans care about weather because it used to be survival. But that one was like, I wasn't super aware that my mind complained about the weather until Michael Singer. But it's, so you can start with noticing, when am I arguing in my mind, I want the weather to be a different way? When am I arguing with the driver in front of me in my head that they need to go slower or faster, or they shouldn't have done that? So again, the awareness is the beginning, and you start with that stuff. When you notice that, he gives you 3 tools or techniques to use. You can do number 1, mantra. So like a mantra is sort of a way of life in a sense, where that you have a mantra that you just kind of constantly have going in your mind, so that your awareness is resting on the mantra instead of resting on all the thinking. So, okay, somebody pulls out in front of you, you notice stories, and then you start going to the mantra. And just totally focusing on that. The other technique he talks about is positive thinking, which is somebody pulls out in front of you, the mind is like, why did they do that, blah, blah, blah. You flip it to from a negative to a positive. Oh, maybe they're in a hurry. Maybe there's an emergency. How important is it? Whatever that is for you. Bye, Britt. Yeah, I hear that you need to go to sleep. It's late. And that you feel lost without a job. I hear you. I'm so glad you joined. So that is number 2. But the third one the most powerful technique Michael Singer talks about is what's called relax and release. So when the person pulls out in front of you in traffic, you notice the actual physical experience going on in the body. You drop out of your thinking, you drop out of mind, and you almost force yourself, because you're reconditioning yourself, so it's going to take, effort, but you bring yourself into your heart center. You bring yourself into the experience of the energies in your body when that person pulled out in front of you, what the actual energetic, physiological, whatever response is in the body, and you relax around those energies. He says, you don't relax the energies, you relax. And it's this subtle energetic experience, really, where you're deeply with the sensations in the body and you're relaxing, and then you're just releasing whatever's here. You're not clinging, you're surrendering, you're letting go, you're holding space, basically. It's almost like an energetic stepping back behind to where that higher part of you is holding space for whatever is happening in here. And that is called relax and release. Yeah, Carrie. So Singer talks about that. And I think he has a full PhD, or he almost got his PhD in economics. So he talks about the reward or the payoff. He uses some economic term. Oh yeah, like cost benefit analysis. He talks about cost. I think it's not return on investment, but something like that. So it's like, you have a 0% maybe return rate. Like if you're mad at the driver in front of you, there's no positive outcome because nothing changes as a result, except you just feel more upset. Like there's a 0% benefit and 100% cost, basically. Yeah, so glad this is helpful. And please too, I have what's called a surrender circle happening. And we've met one time on Zoom, and there are going to be more meetings in the future. So it's a space to meet and share and learn about Michael Singer's teachings. So if you go on my website, and you can find me, and if you haven't already, please follow me here on Insight Timer. You can go on my teacher profile. There's a link there. You can see about that. You can sign up to have your name be added to the list for when I do the next one. And I also do spiritual life coaching, where Michael Singer's teachings are like the container for the coaching, so that whatever's going on, we bring it back to his teachings. So that's really powerful as well. Hi, Nits. Yeah, so I'm curious, how long did you try the mantra? Like you said, you tried to find some. How long did you try with like each one? I'd want to know about that. And that's a beautiful one, Faye. Divinely protected and guided at all times. Beautiful. So you can have any sort of a mantra. It might be like Faye's example. It might be, Sanskrit Om. I mean, just Om. Michael Singer says you could just say God, 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 God. I mean, it could be love. It could be I love you. So the thing with a mantra is, sure, you might find one that fits perfectly immediately, or you might need to go through a period of like adapting and uncomfortability to where it becomes integrated after a while. So thank you, Carrie. Good night. The one that I use is Ho'oponopono. Not the word Ho'oponopono, but the actual English phrases. That's what I use when I'm out in traffic and I'm out in the world. As I'm driving, I'm just repeating the Ho'oponopono phrases. Thank you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you. And I just repeat those nonstop. And I'm listening to music, and because I'm judging, my mind is just judging everything everywhere all the time. And those mantras, those statements help to clear that judgment. Here's the wonderful cleaners. Hold on, I will be right back.
Ya, saya sibuk, saya di call. Ya, kasih ya.
Okay. That wasn't so difficult. So yes, I like doing thank you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you. Heidi, you weren't here earlier when I talked all about the whole cleaner situation. So yes, I knew they were coming and just told them I'm busy and to come back in a bit. So yeah, Nits, you get to find whatever works for you, and you get to commit to something. I would say give a commitment to yourself, and that whatever you choose, you may need to have an integration time before it feels right, comfortable, or familiar. Especially if you're choosing something like, say, Faye's was divinely guided and protected, I think it was. Because the mind is going to be like, it's going to argue with that if it's in fear, and it's not going to feel correct or comfortable, right? So it's even in that sense with those sorts of mantras, it's sort of a reprogramming of the subconscious mind, which is what affirmations do. Yes, I've talked about the cleaners on other lives, which is why I talked about it already before here. So yes. So that's the other tool Michael Singer gives. So, the problem is we have this mind, we become identified with whatever it says, and we just believe whatever it says. So the first step is being aware that that's happening at all. that we are not our thoughts and are not our thinking. And then starting to notice kind of the dynamics of the mind, that it's always in some sort of, there's a problem, there's needing, there's grasping, there's clinging, there's stories, there's preferences. He talks about the rattlesnake and the butterfly. Who all has heard him talk about that before? That's one of my favorites. So he says, think about you're out in nature and a butterfly lands on you, which I had a butterfly land on my glasses, and I got a selfie of it. So I actually have that. And it's like, okay, imagine how it feels to be in a moment where a beautiful butterfly like lands on you. Like, oh, it's like this magical moment where you're just so present and so open, and you feel so alive, and like it's a magical moment. Or say it's a sunset, or your wedding day, or your honeymoon, or some beautiful experience, right? Those are all butterfly moments. So that's one side. The other side is rattlesnake. Say you're out in nature and the butterfly flies off and you continue walking. Then all of a sudden, you see a snake. And then what do? You totally go into fear. You want to get away. You're scared, you're stressed. And so that energy is contraction and fear and all of that. So the butterfly energy is just like you're totally open to the experience. You're letting everything about that experience soak into you. You're open. The rattlesnake experience is you're totally closed. You're totally closed off. You don't want that experience. You don't like that experience. You want it to be finished as quickly as possible. You don't ever want to have another experience like that again. So those are two extreme examples of being open or closed. So what he says is, with the rattlesnake moments, we need to be as open as we are with the butterfly. Now, simple but not easy, right? So and again, starting with the low-hanging fruit, when somebody pulls out in front of you, that's a rattlesnake moment. For you to show up to that being as open as if it's a butterfly landing on you. He says you can boil his teachings down to one statement: don't ever close. Don't ever close. Don't ever close your heart. When the rattlesnake comes, when the traffic and everything in between, that we have that openness. He talks about that we have these hands inside of us, hands that, like these energetic hands that want to push something away. We want to push an experience away because we don't like it and it's not pleasant and we don't want it and we want it to be gone as quickly as possible. The rattlesnake moment, we have these internal hands that push that away. Or the butterfly moment, the hands cling and want more. So say a butterfly lands on you, and then a few years later, you're back to the same place in nature where the butterfly landed on you before, and you want another butterfly to land on you, and it doesn't. Or a butterfly lands on you, but it's not as beautiful as the one the first time. It's a moth, it's not a butterfly, and it's not as colorful, and it didn't stay as long. So when we have a good experience, the mind wants it to be exactly as it was before or better, and so it has these expectations. So in both places, we are clinging or resisting and creating suffering. So the goal is that we come to the rattlesnake moments with the openness that we have of the butterfly moments. Because what happens, and this is, we're getting deeper into his teachings now, what happens is when we resist it, when we close, it gets stored inside. That energy gets stored inside. When we close against the rattlesnake, basically we push that energy down into our body, our energy body. It doesn't go away. So what he says is, we never clean up inside. So, and especially the older you get, the more experiences you have, the more preferences, the more rattlesnake and butterfly moments that you've had, the bigger this mountain of shit gets. So that, I'm 47 now, had a lot of experiences. So when somebody pulls out in front of me and I feel that energetic charge, I'm not feeling it just for that one time in a vacuum. No, it's activating or triggering within me all of the hundreds or however many thousands of times in my entire life when somebody pulled out in front of me and I had a reaction to it that I didn't fully let in, which was every time because I wasn't on this path. So as we get older, the mountain grows. So he says, if you want to change, if you want to be free from suffering, you have to have an intention and a commitment that that's what you want above everything else. And that, it really goes down to, do I want to be right or do I want to be happy in some situations, especially around traffic or things like that. If I want to cling to things need to be a certain way for me to be happy, well, I'm going to suffer. So what he talks about too is, so say you get triggered by anything, you notice that sensation, that shitty feeling inside. To relax and release, that we come out of any stories that the mind is telling about the experience, and we don't pay attention to the mind, and that we come directly into the heart and the energy here. And what he says is, because the natural propensity is to resist it and to push it back down, and to resist the present moment, resist the happening, push it away energetically, push it down. So if we want to awaken and we want to clean up our energy, that we need to actually, when this whole thing happens, to throw it a party. So throwing it a party is the equivalent of not ever closing. Ooh, somebody pulled out in front of me, and maybe it's one that really angers you. That instead of being like, oh, not again, to be like, yes, this is an opportunity for me to let go. Something else is coming up. Something else is here to be healed and cleared. Let me welcome this up. Let me throw it a party. Yay! Come on up. Come on out. So having that butterfly energy for the rattlesnake. Yes, Claire. And, I mean, there's a million situations. He keeps it very simple, and he says start with low-hanging fruit, which is traffic and weather. And when other situations come up, you do your best to practice, if it is more complex things. But when you start with traffic and weather, you start to build those muscles. You start to retrain yourself with things that, you can't control the weather. Nobody can, mostly. And so once you start practicing with that, then the more difficult stuff, you've already built some muscles. And then he also says, things will come up. You don't need to look for things. Whatever's ready to be healed will come up in the order that it's meant to be healed. And really, every present moment, whatever's happening in the moment is a place, an invitation to release. And what he talks about is when you have been on the journey a while and cleared out some things, and Shakti begins to flow. He says what you start realizing because of your presence and your awakening is that the present moment is this beautiful space to dance. That the present moment is like asking for you to like play with it and dance with it. I'm not sure exactly the words. And then he says, then it just becomes, how can I serve this moment in front of me? And that this moment is going to leave better than it did before it came. That sounds beautiful. So, yeah, Claire, he says, okay, a trigger happens. The mind has something to say about it. The practice is to come into the sensations of the heart. And he's very like tough love about like, don't listen to the mind. Just don't, whatever it says, you put your attention on the sensations in the body. And he says, the mind will say, but how long is it going to take? How long do I have to do this? And Singer says, it's none of your business. I love it. So he says, it's none of your business what your mind is thinking. It's none of your business how long it takes for this to move through. It's none of your business. Because if you're wondering that, you're attached. Then you're attached to an outcome. So that's a deeper level there. JC, how do you suggest clearing the mind when it is seeking closer to, say, a failed relationship? Do you mean closure? Okay, closure. Yeah, that makes sense. So really, it's the same thing. I mean, the mind, we don't want to hear this stuff because it seems too simple. The mind wants like this huge process or steps, and that it wants some sort of magical formula sometimes, but it really is very simple in that, okay, you notice the mind is thinking about the person and wanting to obsess and ruminate. It's really the same thing. You have a noticing. You need to have a level of intention followed by commitment to presence and healing. If you're sloppy in your energy, if you're sloppy in your thinking, if you're undisciplined in your thinking, it's difficult. I mean, I've had relationships where they failed for whatever reason, and it consumed me, and it was like, I just lived in this state of obsession and either wanting them back or thinking about all the things that went wrong. It's a shitty loop to be in, and I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but for me, I've had that experience, and it felt like it's hard to get out of that thinking about the relationship after it's over. And what I had to do was it was an addiction to thinking about it. My mind was addicted to thinking about it. So I had to come to a place where I was in so much suffering. I was so tired of it that I was then willing to actually do something about it on the deepest level, which is on the level of thought, which was, I still remember, this was like 4 years ago. I was living here in Bali, and I just was like exhausted about thinking about, this relationship that had been over for a year. And I remember I was back into Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, so this is partly his stuff. But it all ties together. And Michael Singer talks about intention and commitment. And he has one of my favorite talk by him is Your Highest Intention, Self-Realization on YouTube on his podcast. So check that one out. Because if you have a momentum of energy about thinking about a relationship or anything or a problem for a long time, there is like neural pathways, and there is that like physiology, like chemistry, like the body becomes addicted to the thought pattern because of the chemicals released, and the body becomes addicted to those chemicals. So there is that stuff going on as well. Michael Singer keeps it very simple, and he doesn't go into any of that, but it doesn't mean it's also not valid. But basically, you have got to like take charge of your thinking, and yes, you can do it, and yes, it's difficult, and yes, it's possible. So what that would actually look like specifically is you first, like, okay, you wake up tomorrow, or maybe you say, I'm going to start tomorrow, or I'm starting right now, whatever. But you have a commitment to yourself that no matter what, I am not letting any thought pass through my awareness, like that I don't, like, I'm not letting any thought through without being conscious of it. So that when the first thought starts about the thing, and this can apply to any of you for anything where you have this dynamic going on. It might be around money, worries, finances, jobs, health, relationships. It can be anything. But that you have a level of commitment and presence. And this, Michael Singer talks about this. That I'm not going to let any thought go by, like, without me being present to it. So, and then when it comes, so this is what I did with this person in the relationship. and this is from Joe Dispenza. So he says that the minute or the second you notice that thought, you say the word change. And he actually has a meditation called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself that has that within that. And that's where I got this from. So if that resonates, he has that book, he has the meditation. That's another realm of wonderful teachings. But the point I'm pulling out is when you notice that thought that you're trying to break free the habit from, you say change, and then with your will, you focus back into the present moment and you tear your mind away from the juiciness of thinking about that, because it becomes addicted and it feels like juicy, right? Can anybody relate to that? So I used a different word. I used the word program, because the way I saw it, and this is a Dispenza thing as well, is you have a program, you have like programs in your mind, right? I mean, if you want to think of them that way. And so I had this program of the relationship and the person, and everything about that is this like program that my mind was addicted to. And so I was so done with it. I was willing to work at this level, at the deepest level. So every time I thought of it, I said the word program. And guess how many times an hour I was saying that? Probably 60, like once a minute for the first while. I mean, I don't know, but it was a lot. But I was committed. My commitment overrode, any difficulty about it, because I didn't want to suffer anymore. And so I said, program. I mean, sometimes I'd say it out loud, but it was just a thought. So I'd say it, and then I'd refocus, and I just would force myself into this present moment. What's around me? What am I actually doing right now? Because of course, you're always doing things all the time. What am I doing right now? I'd wake up from the illusion of that program, and I said, program. And of course, there was judgment. Oh my God, I'm having to say it like 5 times a second, whatever. But I stuck with it, and I swear, it did not take very long. And it didn't even take the level of diligence that it took in the beginning. In the beginning, because it's like a drug, and the hit is the thing, the topic that you're thinking about. So you have to like break that habit of thinking about it. But it worked. It worked, and it didn't take very long, and I didn't have to be 100% totally diligent every single thought for very long either. And then, so first there was a shame of like, oh my God, what's wrong with you? Like, you're so messed up, like you're thinking about him every second, blah, blah, blah. Sure, that was there, and then it's like, okay, compassion, patience, love, and acceptance. It's okay, you're doing your best. Then it became a game. And then, because then it was like, oh my God, I'm thinking about it every second and saying this word every second. But then it was like, oh, and then it became, like Michael Singer says, you throw at a party. Then it was like, ooh, program, oh, there it is again. And then I couldn't wait to see it. So my attitude had shifted. And then I was like, program, program, program. I remember driving in Bali on my motorbike, and it did dissipate. So is that helpful? So Nitz, you said, this was a long while ago now, I don't know if you're still here, but you said these teachings always show the ideal way to live and act, but doesn't necessarily help to do so and implement. So what I just told you is an exact real life example of how to implement it. And Michael Singer also gives that with, mantra, relax and release, positive thinking. And again, the mind, a lot of times it will reject things because it wants some certain, answer. But it really is that simple. And it's like, well, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to be diligent about my thoughts. It's too hard. It is hard. Have you suffered enough? Yeah, so how to not close is it's an experience that I described in words, but to translate an energetic experience into words is not, the easiest thing to do. So we do our best to put into words subtle experiences of energy. Now, the thing I just told you was very much, because it was somewhat different, was pretty like, I don't know, black and white, if you will say. But so how do you not close? As I talked about the rattlesnake and the butterfly, think about how it feels when you're in a peak experience of an amazing moment you're savoring in your life. Think about how that feels energetically. Remember that, feel into that even in this moment, or even imagine, wow, if you like butterflies or whatever, butterflies landing on me, or there's a vacation destination you've always wanted to visit, and imagine you're walking and seeing it and you're finally there for the first time, and just imagine just the energetic experience of how that would feel. You would be totally open. So that's the state, the energetic state of being open. So then when you're in traffic and the person cuts you off and there's that flare of anger that comes up, you relax, you release, and you keep, you utilize that same energetic stance of, okay, I'm going to be open to this. I'm not going to close. I'm going to relax. He says you relax the body, you relax the shoulders, you relax around the energy, if you will. He says you don't relax it, you relax. So first it takes the awareness of these different dynamics. What does it feel like to have an open peak experience, looking in your lover's eyes and they say, I love you for the first time, and you've been wanting to hear that for weeks, months, or years? And then, I wake up and it's my birthday and it's pouring rain. Or wedding day. I had an outdoor wedding when I got married. So of course, if you're doing an outdoor wedding, you're going to be thinking about weather. I mean, we didn't have rain on our wedding day, thank God. But say if I would have woken up and there was rain, and then I noticed this experience, these internal hands, he says, they push something away, they push down energy, they push an experience away, they resist, you're resisting the experience, you let go. You have that same energetic stance as you would in a butterfly moment. So it's something that you practice. We're talking conceptually here now. So now you have a framework to go by to practice in your life. So the next time the weather or the traffic, you notice it, then you can be like, okay, here's my chance to practice. Okay, yeah, remember how a butterfly moment feels. Okay, can I practice that? Can I relax my body? Can I see where, can I see the closing? Maybe some of you don't have a sense of how it feels to close. So maybe you get to see how that feels first, so then you know how it would feel to open. But he basically says, don't ever close, meaning don't ever close your heart. And yeah, clear intention, practice, commitment. Hi, Captain. Yeah, the Ho'oponopono is good for everything in my view. Oh, and then you don't relax it, you relax. Yes. I'm so glad you brought this in. I love questions. I love, any kind of questions that help clarify and deepen the teachings. Yes, so whenever I was talking about that, the program, that is a Joe Dispenza teaching that's not Michael Singer. And yeah, you're right. That's a great point. So Michael Singer says, you don't pay attention to the mind. Whatever the mind's thinking, it's none of your business. You come fully into the experience of the heart. So that's a great clarification. Joe Dispenza has something different. I was sharing my own personal experience about, because JC, I think it was, talked about how do you work with this stuff with relationships. So I was bringing in my own experience that worked, which was different than the pure Michael Singer teaching. And we use what works. We take what works. So practice all these things. I mean, we're so blessed. We're so blessed now in the world with the ability to share just so much information so easily and learn at the foot of these masters. I mean, you go on, well, for me, my YouTube is just like spiritual teaching. So I go on YouTube, I can sit at the foot of any spiritual master. It's amazing. So we have this wonderful world with many teachers that are all pointing to the same thing and having different paths. You take what works. Honestly, for me, in that time when I was in recovery from that relationship, I'm just trying to think, if I would have had Michael Singer, which I did know Michael Singer, but I wasn't deeply into his teachings like I am now. I mean, it would have taken a high level of commitment, a higher level than it already took for me to do the program thing, for me to have, come out of the mind and come into the body and into the heart, because it was no bueno in there. So, yeah. Yeah, and I love your questions, Nits, and you're listening well to bring that in. So yeah, so what I talked about is, if you know how closed feels, then you'll know how to open. Because we just go about the world, we're conditioned. We just have years of conditioning in thoughts and the body. If you drive to work the same way every day, and say you live in Southern California, which I did, that's what's coming to mind. It's like, you've got a 2-hour commute to go, 5 miles or whatever it is. You've got a conditioned experience about that. But until you wake up in it, you're not aware. So this idea about, we'll just say like rattlesnake energy, like being closed or closing to things that the ego, the mind doesn't like, to start noticing all the places where you close and what that looks and feels like. That would be anywhere where you're arguing with reality and where you're having a preference where things are not your preference. So, traffic, weather, food isn't as good. Sally didn't say hi. Michael Singer talks about that all the time. Sally didn't say hi. Oh my God, what does the mind make up about that? It closes against that. So anywhere where you're not at peace, basically, that's where you're closed. But just starting to wake up and look and, be aware of when those moments happen, so that then you can start thinking, okay, here's a moment. I feel it. It's like a constriction. For me, it's a constriction in the chest and the heart. Maybe there might be like a breathing more shallow. It's not basically it's not relaxed here for me. And it's not like my muscles. It's not about the muscles. It's about like, for me, it's the heart. And I don't even know if it's a physical heart. I mean, the heart is like this multi-dimensional place. But there's an energy of constriction and not peace. And resistance and close. It just like closed. It feels closed. So start just noticing how that feels. How often are you showing up in your day or just having that sort of reaction or response in the day? So then you can start seeing that. So then in an easy one, that's why low-hanging fruit, when you wake up and it's raining and you were going to go to the park, and you feel that contraction, you feel that constriction, or that something changes in here, then you can think, okay, this is the rattlesnake energy, or the closed, the resistant energy. Okay, can I work with myself inside? He talks about this a lot, working with yourself inside. Can I open? How does it feel to witness a beautiful sunset? Or how did it feel on my wedding day when I said I do? Whatever it is, or had my baby, I don't know. It could be anything. How did that feel? Is there any way I can apply even just the 1%? Any sort of opening where I can feel just the slightest shift. And it's a relaxing and releasing. Thank you, Claire. Yes, and it's somatic work if you want to look at it that way, totally. Yeah, your heart can feel hardened. There can be a defensiveness. So, yes, if anyone wants to, has any questions, comments, I need to go. The cleaning people, I told them 30 minutes, so it's time to end. This has been great. Please don't forget to follow me and give a donation here if you feel called. You can find out more about me. Facebook, Instagram, would appreciate follow there. Subscribe on YouTube. I'm live there right now. Good things are coming. If you feel called to reach out one-on-one for an individual session with me, you can find out how to do that as well. Thank you, Sil. Thank you, everyone, for joining. It's Friday. I will see you for Saturday Night Live. Thank you. And don't forget to check out Michael Singer And also, I will put this up as a recorded live on my YouTube channel. So if you want to re-listen to it, catch it again, it will be there. Have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening. Bye-bye.
Okay, sudah. Kamu kamu bersih di bawah sebelumnya? Iya. Oke. Saya tahu.
Masih ingat? Ya.
Iya, masih ingat.
You can put that. It's okay.
No problem.
Yeah. Tidak apa.
Terus